is Carina and welcome to the Carina Chronicles. Today I will do a full, spoiler-full review of Anxious People, both the book and the Netflix series. In this new series on my YouTube channel, I will watch the movie or TV show adaptations of some of my favorite books. I will do this throughout the years. I'm not going to watch them all in one video or something. But I started with Anxious People, which got a Netflix adaptation called Folk met Angst. It's a Swedish adaptation, but there is of course English subtitles and also Dutch subtitles. And Fredrik Backman is also a Swedish author, so it makes sense. Anxious People was my third favorite book of 2021. I was really surprised, and it is really a book that I recommended to a lot of people. So I was curious about the Netflix series and I watched it now, so I can tell you all about it. It will be spoiler filled, but I will put spoilers on the screen, like a big word spoiler, and then till when you can skip if you don't want to hear the spoilers. I will also do general comments, so it's also nice if you didn't read the book or watch the show yet. So I'm doing a spoiler-filled review because it's very hard to do a non-spoilery review of this book. So I told you it's about anxious people. Well, the title is very good, but the title makes it sound a lot more serious than the book is. The book, this is not really a spoiler because it literally starts with it. The book starts with suicide, which is of course very triggery. So watch some trigger warnings of the book before you go and read it, also before the Netflix show, of course. You are really like, oh no, this is going to be such a depressive book. But it is actually not. It is a very heavy topic. It deals with a lot of heavy topics. It is about people and all their mind games, kind of, how they feel themselves unworthy, how they feel in what other people think about them. It starts with a suicide, then you skip time and you go to a bank robbery that goes completely wrong, and the bank robber takes people hostage. And then you're going through time and see all the lives of all these characters that are taken hostage. And they also start talking to each other. They are of course in fear, so they share maybe a lot more than they would do when they were just normal people meeting each other in other circumstances. And this sounds all very serious, but Fredrik Backman made it sure that it is a very fun and light book, but at the same time you also get a lot of deep conversations with these characters. And I read some other reviews of people that really didn't like any of the characters. Maybe then it's harder to get through if you don't like them at all. But at least you get a lot of different characters and you see how they all have come to where they are now at this hostage situation. When you look at the Netflix show, it is actually a show of 6 episodes, all around 25 to 30 minutes. So that's pretty short. And the first big thing that I noticed was that it really follows the story. It really, if you read the book, the Netflix series won't be like, oh, I didn't see this coming or something. It's exactly the same. But the most important thing, and also the first thing I'm going to mention, is the vibe of the show. The vibe is just perfect. And that's just such a weird word to describe a whole series. But the vibe is exactly the same as the book. You are laughing all the time while you're actually learning things, and it's getting very emotional. So the first episode is just ridiculous. You're really like, I don't know what I am looking at. This is such a weird story, and it gets more emotional with every episode. And starting from episode 4, I've cried my eyes out through the rest of the series, and I was not alone. I actually watched it with my boyfriend because I thought he might like it as well. And he thought exactly the same. Normally we are completely different with our taste, especially for our movies or TV series. But he thought it was very well done. It was very, very funny. He shared it after 10 minutes with his parents, like, okay, you should watch this. This is so funny. But he was also really touched in the end. And he thought it was perfect that it was only 6 short episodes, because I sometimes felt that important details were missing. That's of course always the struggle when you read the book first. But I really thought some important things were missing. But I actually do agree with him that it is fine like this, because it's very good on itself, that it has 6 short episodes, and it can get a lot of people to just watch an episode and get into this crazy story. One thing that also really differs is that in the book you switch between perspectives, and you see a lot of different characters and you learn things from their perspectives. But in the series, every episode is about other characters. And what comes with that is also that in the book approximately ends when the hostage situation is over. I think this is not a spoiler, but the book kind of ends when the hostage situation is over. The series, on the other hand, has the hostage situation being over almost immediately, and then people meet up afterwards. And I think they did that because in a book it's very natural to go into someone's head and see what they think, but in the show they need to show it. And I think they thought that to be too difficult in the hostage situation themselves. So they worked a lot with flashbacks and also with people meeting up after the hostage thingy and talking about it. I thought it was a little weaker than the book in that way, but I really understood why you would do that, because it's otherwise impossible. And they did it in a very good way, but that was something that was completely different. And now there are 2 spoilery parts, so I will put on the screen spoilers, and until when you have to skip the spoilers. The spoilers are both for the book and for the Netflix series. So if you did read the book but didn't watch the Netflix series yet, you will still be spoiled. So please skip it then, unless you really don't mind. It's not something that will blow your mind, but just something I wanted to point out. There are 2 things that really differed from the book in the series that I thought were a little bit of a shame, although I did understand them. Actually 3. The first one is about the mother of Jacques. I don't remember how his father is called, but in the book it's very clear she died, and people, they are both struggling in their own way to cope with that. And in the series it's only implied. Maybe that's good enough, but you don't get why they behave in certain ways as good as in the book. So their roles are a little less important, and I find that a shame, because I think their story was really beautiful in the book. And the second part is about Sarah. She, of course, in the book goes to a psychologist, and that's quite an important part of the story. And in the series, she doesn't go to a psychologist. She just talks a little bit to Leonard, the rabbit. And that's it. That's actually it. Yeah, she has a quick call with a doctor about her panic attacks, but that's everything you know about what's in her head. And I thought her talks with the psychologist were very good in the book. But I can understand that if you make a series of 6 short episodes, the talks are maybe the first thing to go out. And the last thing that changed is that they changed, this is a big spoiler, this is that they changed the letter that Sarah got of the man that jumped off the bridge. Because in the series they made it that he jumped because he had terminal cancer and he didn't want to die ill, so he decided to commit suicide. And that's a little bit too fairy tale-like in my opinion, because in the book it's just he is depressed, or well, actually there is no reason stated why he jumped. It's not about like, oh, his suicide wasn't that bad, because I think that's a weird thing to say in the Netflix series. It's like he would have died anyway, and there's no big reason and it's not that bad. He would have died a month later, but now he died on his own terms. That's not how the suicide went in the book, and I think that's a weird thing to make it into in the Netflix series. And the letter that Sarah read in the Netflix series also actually says like, okay, I had cancer, it wasn't your fault or anything. While in the book, it only stated, it wasn't your fault. Like, only that. And that's just so powerful. Like, that hurt me so much more, that touched me so much more than this whole letter about him having cancer and she had nothing to do with it. But just like, there could be still so much wrong in his life why he committed suicide. But the only thing that is important is that it wasn't her fault. And that also makes a lot more sense. Someone who commits suicide is not going to write a whole letter to a random person. He was just like, okay, but she will think it's her fault. It's not, okay. And I think that's a big change that I didn't like. Hello, Carina from the future again. I show up in almost every video now. But I have another spoiler that I really forgot to mention, but I really wanted to mention. In the book, when the bank robber, is revealed to be a woman, that was like very much a plot twist to me. They were called him almost all the time. Everyone assumed it to be a man. And when it was a woman, the whole story changed. And it's so weird that gender does that, because it shouldn't matter at all, but it does. And I really felt like I was caught in thinking in boxes. And that really, I really felt called out, and that was really good. It was a really good experience, and I was really angry at myself, and the book did that to me and completely fooled me. And in the Netflix series, it's also a woman, and she also gets revealed throughout the story. But you can see on the way her body looks that it is a woman, and it's also not made a great point. And maybe it wasn't meant to be a great point, but for me it was. For me it was a plot twist, and more people had that. They didn't expect it at all. And in the Netflix series, it is not a point at all. It is very clear that it is a woman. But I did feel like they tried to hide it by not letting her talk and stuff. And also when she's robbing the bike, she gives a little paper what she wants. She doesn't talk. And it seems like she does that to hide her voice, to also hide that she is a woman. And if that is the case, if they wanted to make it a plot twist, it wasn't really clear in the series. Because she just randomly appears at one moment and no one really is shocked that it is a woman. So I just wanted to mention that as well. So those were the spoilers. I hope you didn't watch them when you haven't read or seen the series yet. So I really hope so, because those were big spoilers. But okay, that was also actually everything I wanted to say about it. I think Anxious People, the book, is for everyone that loves a laugh in a book, that wants a book that you can quickly go through, but is still very, very meaningful and keeps you thinking long after you've read it. But it is triggering, so please look up the trigger warnings if you are easily affected by those. And the series I would recommend to people with a certain kind of humor, but I don't know how to say that because it's really ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. They have a very typical Scandinavian humor. It's very dry. It's very subtle, but also not. And well, if you want a good cry, it's also a very good and emotional series. I think Folk met Angst is one of the best adaptations I've ever seen, and that's mostly because of the vibe I mentioned earlier. The book gave me a certain feeling and left me talking and wanting more for a long time, and the series did exactly the same. I couldn't put the series down. We binge watched it almost immediately. It was incredible. I cried so much, I laughed so hard, and it had exactly the same effect on me. And I think that is the most important. The story shouldn't be like on every detail exactly the same. If it leaves you with the same feeling and the same thoughts, I think it did great. So I would highly recommend both of these. I gave Anxious People as a book 5 out of 5 stars, and I would do the same with the Netflix series. If I should choose between the two, well, when don't you choose the book? That's almost never. But I would in this case still choose the book, but I might recommend the series more often because some people just don't read that much. And this series is just 6 episodes of half an hour. You can easily fit in. It's like watching one long movie if you binge watch it. So I would highly recommend both. And that was actually it. I really hope you liked this new concept. Let me know in the comments down below if you have read Anxious People or if you have watched the show or both, or if you're gonna. I'm just very curious. If you subscribe to my channel and you click the notification bell, you will be notified whenever I post a new video. Let me also know some good adaptations that you saw. Maybe I've read the book as well and I can do them for this mini-series. I hope you'll have a lovely day filled with books, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye! I never watch TV shows, so this is really something new for me. And I'm so excited that this adaptation was actually very, very good. It was a whole new experience, but with the same vibe. Amazing.